Hi, I'm Wes, the Explosion, and there's important Mega Man stuff happening. Well, kind of. It's not a new game, at least not a new Mega Man game, and that's actually just a demo. But there is an actual Mega Man event happening. Though it's more just a general Capcom thing that could possibly tie back to Mega Man. Maybe I shouldn't say that there's important Mega Man stuff happening, but instead that there's some Mega Man related stuff happening that could become important to the franchise, depending on how things shake out. That better? Not really. Geez, this intro's a mess. Let's just get to it. So anyway, that second thing I mentioned, the Capcom Super Election is going on right now. This is a general consumer survey that Capcom does. I think they've done it in years past, but it feels a little different this time. The questions seem a bit more pointed. Before you begin, you get to choose your role at Capcom Village and what ability you'd have. I don't think this plays into the survey data, but I still chose Assistant Robot with a slide, even though that double jump would have been really nice, just in case. And then you get 10 questions. First is, what's your favorite Capcom game, which I picked, of course, Mega Man X. Then, who's your favorite Capcom character? I chose Zero because I am very basic. And something worth noting, if you can't find what you're looking for these first two questions, vary up your spelling. Mega Man, one word, pulls up most games, but when you're talking character names, split it into two. And really weird, I saw one guy who liked Legends find that series' main character listed as Rock Volnut. Oddly inconsistent. And if your selection doesn't show up even then, I'm sorry, though I do appreciate the deep cut. Then it was, what do you look for in a Capcom game, and what image do you have of Capcom? Multiple choice, up to 3, so they might be fishing for compliments. Don't remember what I put for that, and it'd be boring to list out anyway, though I do know that replay value was one of my choices for the first. Then there were the big ones. What series would you like to see a sequel or new game for, and is there a game you'd like to see completely remade? Of course, I said Mega Man and Mega Man 1, 2, and 3 because that was the specific option listed. Honestly, don't even need to remake one, just port power it up and continue on from there. Oh, and because I saw somebody say that Mega Man fans shouldn't be asking for remakes, I'd just like to clarify that we haven't gotten any. Just a bunch of ports of the same games we bought over 20 years ago with some slight tweaks to include modern conveniences. I'm sure I don't need to tell you that, but just in case. Then it was, what was the first Capcom game you played, which was a little hard for me to answer. I got into Mega Man through Ruby Spheres and word of mouth. My first console was the Super Nintendo, so I think it was Mega Man X as a rental. But when I was gifted a Game Boy Pocket one Christmas, Dr. Wily's Revenge was the first game that I got alongside it. And when I got a used NES, I immediately picked up Mega Man 2 and 3. While there was plenty of time between each of these events, at least a year apart, I think this was the general order of things, but it has been over 25 years, so some of these kinda blend together. Went with X though, since that seemed to be the most likely. Next is, which Capcom game has influenced you the most, and I started feeling a little lame listing Mega Man X for the third time. Couldn't really say anything else here though. Then you get to choose a complaint, though only one because they're very sensitive. There were a few things I could have chosen here. Reboot old IPs, too money-oriented, needs to communicate with its fans better, but I went with the most obvious one, too slow to release new numbered titles. Still waiting on that X9, and a new entry in anything other than Zero wouldn't go amiss. And perhaps the weirdest question, we welcome all your support for Capcom. I think what they meant was, do you plan on supporting Capcom? Since that at least has a question mark. But I said, it depends on how Capcom acts. While I like a lot of Capcom games, I think we all know what I'm there for. When we got all those cancellations, I stopped buying Capcom games for years because while we're not entitled to new Mega Man games, they're not entitled to my or any other fan's money either. The only title I picked up during this period was Ace Attorney Investigations, that I made sure to buy used since it wasn't a direct sale, and it struck me as the sort of title that I'd never find again if I didn't buy it right then. It was alright from what I remember. I made sure to buy the Legacy Collection on 3DS when that came out, Special Edition, because I remember a story about how a Darkstalkers compilation released and nobody bought it. Probably because most fans of that series already own all the old games, there's only 3, and Capcom took this to mean that nobody cared about that series. Son of a... And then once we got 11, I just gave up my personal boycott. Could always consider taking it back up though, hence my answer here. Then there was an extra step, where you could either leave additional feedback or skip, and I wrote a paragraph. only to find out that it was limited to 400 characters. Didn't tell me what count I was at either, so I had to hack my response apart a few times. The gist was, I like and appreciate the Legacy collections, but really want something new, and with just the name, Rockman Tyson, I can't get too excited about where we're heading. And with that, it's the end of the survey, both for me and hopefully you if you give it a go. It'll be linked in the description. So why is this important? Or possibly important? Like I said, they've done this before. Well, I think it's what some of these questions seem to be alluding to that's got people talking. The more open-ended and basic ones feel more like something I'd write for a paper in elementary school. Zero is my favorite character because he is from my favorite video game, Mega Man X, where he is best friends with X and fights for justice and dies, and I play it on my Super Nintendo that my brother and I saved up for, and it is my favorite game of all time. Working backwards though, the list of complaints, notably lack of numbered sequels, rebooting old IP, and desire for something brand new point to them maybe knowing that Capcom fans not holding their breath for anything other than Street Fighter, Monster Hunter, Resident Evil, or just ports of old games is a meme. And those first two options in particular kinda make it seem like they're also aware of how many old series they're sitting on that fans have been begging for something new from. While Mega Man fans definitely seem to be the most vocal, I also saw mentions on Twitter for Darkstalkers, Ace Attorney, Rival Schools, and even Power Stone, and you know what? Can't blame them. Half of those I like, and I probably would like the other half if I got the chance to play them. Again though, is this anything new? For Capcom not to be aware of what their other fan bases have been clamoring for would be willful ignorance at this point, and yet most of us have either heard nothing, or just gotten re-releases as padding, so why should this be any different? Well, it's that they seem to be specifically addressing these complaints with their questioning. There's the bit I just mentioned, as well as them directly asking, to your monitor, what series do you want to see something new in mainline from, and what do you want to see redone? While there's a chance that they're just looking for confirmation bias and expecting people to just pick the same 3 series that they're already doing things for, I think it'd be kind of a jerk move if they weren't looking for an actual varied response. It'd be like if I asked you what you want for dinner tonight, and you said pizza, and then I told you that we're still having broccoli and liver. I was just curious. Just to be clear, I have nothing against Street Fighter, Monster Hunter, and Resident Evil. I understand why they're popular. I just find it extremely disappointing when a company that has a roster of franchises and characters that could rival Nintendo just sits on the vast majority of them. While I'm discussing this as part of a call to action for the Mega Man fanbase, I also can't hold it against anyone who goes and asks for more Breath of Fire or Devil May Cry either. The fact that I can be so sympathetic just shows how neglected so many of us have been. And while I think this is a chance to maybe open some doors, I don't really expect us to see the results for a good while. It'd be nice if they made the results public, but that could also make it seem like they're accountable to do as they've been asked, so I imagine we won't find out the specifics. And games take time to make. Even if they're overwhelmingly popular in this survey, I don't expect to see trailers for X9 or Darkstalkers 4 at the next Capcom Presents. Depending on how they do it, a new Mega Man game might not take too long, though a Devil May Cry could take a while. An Ace Attorney might just depend on whether somebody already has a script written, hidden in a desk, just waiting for the prophesized day. While I think we have a chance here, I'm not sure when we can expect to hear anything back, and honestly, this could always just be an act for Capcom to pretend they're listening. But hey, given that this could turn into a windfall for Capcom if they ask us what we want and then allow us to pay them for it, I'm gonna allow myself at least a glimmer of hope, and once again encourage people to give the Capcom Super Election a click themselves. I also mentioned a demo for a game, didn't I? Virtua Unlimited Project was something I saw a trailer for a while ago, thought, oh, it's Mega Man Zero, wishlisted it, and then kinda forgot about it. Then I saw some people talking about a game on Twitter and started thinking that it looked vaguely familiar. What do you know, I was ahead of the game on this one, though being alerted to the demo was nice. So I went ahead and played it twice, once on normal, once on hard, and I didn't touch Master, but did want to mention that it's there. And it's pretty much Mega Man Zero. You start out with a gun, but soon get a sword as well, both of which you can charge, and just checking out the basic combo is all you need for the influence to be immediately apparent. While she doesn't yell out, wah wah wah, or too fat roll, the animation is very similar to Zero's, and the sound the sword makes, if not spot on, is very close. From there, the similarities just keep stacking up. You can dash, and killing most enemies will give them a damaged sprite for a brief moment before exploding, like being cut in half or a chunk blown out of them. Each main stage seems to have a health upgrade, and I also found an R-tank in one. Beating a boss gives you their card, which when equipped, will give you their EX skill, which changes one of your basic moves like giving your aerial drop Ice Shockwaves. A big special move, once you build up enough energy, that also stops the action for a brief moment to put up a character profile, which is more in line with Azure Striker Gunvolt, and adds an element to charged attacks. Speaking of, the first card you get grants you Ice and a rotating shield for your special, whereas the second is Fire. The demo pulls a nasty little trick on you with this. Them explaining how weaknesses are a thing, so that when I went into the next boss with Ice, I figured they were using Ice equals Water, which beats Fire logic, but that actually wasn't the case. While I had a little trouble on normal, I still managed to beat her this way, but on hard, I was really struggling. While I'm not sure if this is the only thing, it seems like you do less damage on hard, and I couldn't seem to do enough to the boss without going back to the standard card. Refighting the previous boss with Fire equipped though completely wrecked him. There's a part of me that wants to be mad since it felt a little misleading, but at the same time, encouraging some trial and error in your demo doesn't strike me as a bad thing. And while lives don't seem to be a thing in this game, you do get ranked and dying affects your score. I got 2 S's and 1 A each run, but I hear there's a higher rank V. There's equipable buffs, you get so many points to play around with at once for them, which do things like auto charge, cause you not to slip on ice, or give a double jump, which reminds me of 03's chips. There's also a foot dive that you can use to bounce off enemies. Since it's not really a Mega Man thing, I kept forgetting that I had it, but it's pretty darn fun to do. Let's move away from the comparisons and actually talk about the demo, first by addressing the elephant in the room. Why are you a pretty anime girl? Don't worry, this isn't a Rose and Crustalette situation. Apparently some, maybe even all of the cast, are VTubers. And this isn't feigned ignorance on my part, pretending not to know much on the subject. Sana is eternal and subscribed to Dokibird, I'm just not familiar with any of these guys. Even when I looked up the main character, Aizawa Kana, Google didn't turn up anything outside of this game and other VTubers with similar names. From what I can gather, I think they're Chinese, which would explain why a lot of the text doesn't seem wrong, just unnatural. Could still understand it all without hurting myself, unlike X-Dive and X6, so the translation's pretty good I'd say, and as an extension of that, I didn't read any lines that made me feel like I was missing a reference or inside joke. So there seemed to be care not to exclude people who don't watch these VTubers on a regular basis, unlike similar projects. No, it just kinda feels like you're playing an actual game, rather than a fan title, which is good since that's how they're marketing it. As for what's included in the demo, there's 3 levels, the intro and 2 regular stages. There's also a short tutorial you run through after the intro to make sure that you're not missing anything. And from the same machine you access this, you can pull up boss rematches. And once you clear everything, not only can you revisit stages, but there's an extra boss fight that's unlocked in the rematches, so we're looking at 3 stages, 4 bosses, and a tutorial. As for what I thought, I absolutely loved it. It went from something that I probably would pick up whenever I remembered it, and it went on sale, and I was bored, to something I'm definitely picking up immediately when we get the full release. Heck, I think it's releasing on multiple consoles, so I might even get it twice depending on the order. The game played really well and I loved the Zero games. The addition of the foot dive and some of the sword options were really fun. The music was pretty good. Wish I could include it here, but I don't see anywhere to download it yet, and I'm not advanced enough to rip it myself, so continue to enjoy Mega Man music. I'll admit, I was a little worried going into it since I saw a video from the game that was just the highway from Mega Man X, almost 1-to-1, but with different sprite work. But that was just a section of a single level, not the whole thing. The developers have been pretty open with their inspiration, even mentioning Rockman Zero in the game's description. They even managed to take some of the elements from those games and make them more palatable, there being a lava chase and parts where you have to move between cool zones to avoid overheating in the fire level that felt a lot less irritating. They even threw in something extra, you needing to stomp in switches to pop out platforms in the middle of all this, and all of it coming together pretty naturally. They're not being coy with what they're pulling from, but I think they're doing enough with how they're combining the different elements and adding in their own unique ideas that it doesn't just feel like a reskin. My only real complaint with the demo is just that I wish it were a bit more streamlined. While I don't mind text and lore in games, when I'm just trying it out to see if I like it, I don't really think I need all that. While I get that they seem to just be letting people play through the first part of the game, and things like introductions just kinda go hand in hand with that, it still feels like they could have trimmed the fat a bit. Luckily, you can skip cutscenes, which I did my second time through, though I still needed to do that damn tutorial. Still, if my biggest complaint with the demo is about something that I can actively choose not to engage with, that's very promising. So yeah, I can't really recommend this one enough. If I were playing the full game, based on my impressions so far, I'd probably say, If you like the idea of Mega Man Zero but could never get into it because of its harsh difficulty, give this one a go. Or, if you like the Zero series, pick this one up and crank its difficulty. But because it's a free demo, the only reason not to try it out is if you don't have a PC or Steam account. Like I said, I went from casually interested to really looking forward to its full release, and hope that other people feel the same. I guess the theme for this week is about sending a message. And I don't mean for that to sound as ominous as it probably does. The Capcom Super Election is a chance for us to tell Capcom exactly what we think, what we want, and probably most importantly to them, what we're willing to shell out for. It doesn't take too long to fill out either, so please give it a look. As for Virtua Unlimited Project, that's about voting with your wallet and supporting games that are fulfilling a niche that Capcom currently isn't, and it doesn't just apply to this indie title. Gravity Circuit, Moonrider, 20XX, One Step from Eden, heck, there was one game from the same publisher called Super Alloy Ranger that I played recently that had some Mega Man DNA in it. While I know many credit Mega Man 11 to being a 30th anniversary commemoration, I can't help but notice that it didn't seem to be that far behind the massive success of Mighty No. 9's Kickstarter. By supporting Mega Man-inspired games, it not only shows that there's still a desire for such titles, with profit attached, but it also gives us something to play, since we haven't been getting anything new from Capcom. And heck, even if we see a revival and start getting regular releases again, I still think that most of these are worth playing. I will never not get excited about Shovel Knight. With that, I'm done beating you over the head with my suggestions, so thanks for watching and let me know down below what you're asking Capcom for, whether you played Virtua Unlimited Project and what you thought of it, and if there's any other indie platformers I should give a look, since I want to do more of that. Oh, and maybe consider subscribing if you enjoyed the video. Guess I did have a few more things to ask of you.